What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wonder. Batman's birthday was this past weekend, so I figured I'd recommend some not as well-known Batman cartoons for you guys to celebrate. So let's conversationalize. What up, guys? So it was Batman's birthday this past weekend, March 30th, which was the first day that Batman debuted in the comics at all. Detective Comics number 27 was his comic debut, and I think most people would agree that he is one of the most well-known and one of the most beloved fictional characters ever created because of his thirst for righteousness and his dedication to justice. And so in this video, I'm going to recommend some Batman cartoons for you guys, 3 specifically, that people might not know as well. Now, of course, there is Batman the Animated Series, and that's not going to be part of the 3 I recommend because I feel like most people know about that one if you're a Batman fan. It is widely regarded because it is the greatest Batman anything of all time. So it's just on another level. Like, it's not just the best Batman cartoon of all time. That's obvious. But, like, it's the greatest anything of Batman ever created. Batman anything. It is perfect Batman. But this video will be talking about cartoons that people might not know as well. So let's get started. So actually I'm going to start with what might be the most well-known of these 3. I'm not quite sure about that, but it's just an educated guess. Batman Brave and the Bold. This cartoon is very reminiscent of the Adam West live-action Batman series back in the 60s. That is a very beloved series as well. And this cartoon is reminiscent of that, but it adds many other heroes from the DC good guy catalog, if you will. And it really is a very fun DC cartoon. And because DC is kind of known as being the darker of the 2 main superhero universes, DC and Marvel, it's nice to have a cartoon like this that is a little bit lighter and doesn't take everything as seriously and that you can laugh at, but still, you know, it's not overly jokey about stuff. And there's some really standout characterizations of certain DC heroes in here. I think what this series does that is cool is that it gives some more attention to some of the lesser known DC heroes in general. You get more attention on Plastic Man, Green Arrow, even though, you know, a lot of people know about Green Arrow. But you get more attention on Blue Beetle, so that, you know, not as, like, they're not the A-listers. You still have, like, Superman and Wonder Woman in here, but you also get to give some attention to you know, the B-list heroes, I guess you could say. Even some of the C-listers, the D-listers. This show goes deep into a bunch of DC characters that you're probably going to be like, that's a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. That's weird. There are definitely some characters like that in here, both good guys and bad guys. What's funny is that it's not your conventional Batman series in that sense, but it's also not conventional in the fact that a lot of the villains that Batman faces are other heroes' villains as well. So it's not just other heroes that show up in the show, it's other heroes' rogues gallery. So Batman comes face-to-face with the Gorilla Grodd, who's a Flash villain. He comes face-to-face with Mongol, who's more associated with Superman, that kind of stuff. And so it is nice to see Batman set in this more light-hearted world, but at the same time, they still keep... Batman himself is still not a jokey character. He's not a silly character like they did him in the Adam West Batman series and then the Joel Schumacher films. Oh boy. Batman Forever and Batman Robin. I don't like those movies. But Batman himself in this cartoon is a very serious character. But they find a way in this cartoon to still make him have good chemistry with the other heroes who are always more jokey, always more lighthearted than he is, but still keep him Batman at the end of the day. At its core, he's still very much... They get his characterization down really well. And the series also does a phenomenal job at showing that even though Batman has no powers, and even when he's surrounded by other heroes who do have powers, he's still the best out of all of them, and everybody treats him that way. So, this series is great. I highly recommend. Moving on to a little series called Beware the Batman. Now, I think that this might be the least known of any Batman cartoon, because it only ran for 2-ish seasons, and it was canceled after that, and I really wish they would have continued because there's some dangling plot threads at the end of season 2, again, ish, and I really wish they would have been able to resolve them because it was a very, it's the one I've most recently viewed. I watched Batman Brave the Bold when I was a kid. I watched the other Batman series I'm going to talk about when I was a kid. This one is the one that I've most recently seen, and I was very impressed with. It's the only CGI animated Batman show. So it's 3D, and I think I would honestly say it's probably the darkest Batman cartoon as well. So it's a lot more edgy than the other Batman cartoons that are more lighthearted that your kids can watch. This one I think kids could still watch, but maybe a little bit older kids because it is more edgy in that regard. The series stands out for a number of reasons, but one of them is that it deliberately picks Batman villains that are still Batman villains, but are much lesser known and we haven't seen in hardly any other medium, even in other cartoons. Even with all the C-listers and D-listers I mentioned when I was talking about Batman Brave and the Bold, this Batman cartoon goes even deeper into the D-list Batman villains and C-list Batman villains, the ones that you're like, okay, yeah, definitely have never heard of those guys before. But I think they still do a good job at making these new characters, even though you're not used to, like, there's no Joker in this series. That's pretty crazy. There's no Joker in this series. There's no Penguin. There are some Batman villains that you'll probably recognize, but most of them are ones that you're like, who is that? But they do a really good job at making them interesting and still giving them that like Batman Rogues Gallery villain kind of flavor where they each have a distinct quality about them that makes them an interesting character, an enemy to defeat for Batman in relation to Batman. This show also shines a really good light on Batman's detective work, gives Batman some phenomenal detectivizing moments. I just invented a new word there, that's pretty awesome. And you also have a new sidekick in this show, or at least new for a Batman cartoon. When it comes to Batman sidekicks, obviously Robin is the main one that everybody thinks of. But in this show, they actually do Katana, and she's a character from the comics, wields a samurai sword. And you know, she still could definitely be considered a sidekick, but she plays more like a partner to Batman in this show, and parts of it actually make more sense than him having Robin as a sidekick. And this one, it's an adult fighting crime with Batman, which makes way more sense than a kid. And also, I think another really big standout about this series is that its iteration of Alfred, I would say, is the most different Alfred we've seen, possibly in any Batman medium, not just cartoons. This Alfred is like complete secret agent Alfred. Like, there's some stuff that they go into, there's some stuff that they have Alfred do that is just purely awesome. Like, it's probably going to be a lot of people's favorite version of Alfred just because of how different and cool this... It's like James Bond Alfred. That's the best way I can put it. He's still older, but he can kick some butt in this one. Also, unlike other Batman series, which are very episodic and don't really tell an overarching story each season, even though this show technically only has, like I said, 2-ish seasons worth of content, it still does tell a semi-overarching story between the two, or at least there's some plot threads that connect some of the episodes together, unlike in other Batman series. So that makes this one another standout. And again, it's darker, it's grittier, it shows more of Batman's detective side, and also it's kind of like Batman in his early days as well. So it's kind of just him figuring out how to be the best hero for Gotham that he can be, while the police force still not overly fond of a vigilante protecting Gotham, and all these different details. So I think this series is really cool, and I think you should check it out. Alright, last cartoon in here, The Batman. No, not... It has no connection to the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. Not that The Batman. This is a different The Batman. Not The Batman, The Batman. Big difference. This cartoon, it's also pretty obscure, I would say. I don't know if it's as obscure as Beware the Batman, but nobody talks about it. I feel like nobody talks about this one, and I feel like it has a lot to offer. There are 5 seasons of this cartoon. 5! Now, granted, it's 13 episodes a season, but still, there are 5 seasons. And so, they actually do have time to build Batman out from his younger days into when he's established with having more sidekicks, even joining the Justice League. You're able to see all of that take place in one cartoon. And I would say this is the only other series that does that, when you get, again, seeing like him over the course of like his entire career, other than obviously the DC AAU, the DC Animated Universe with Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited, and all those. That's the perfect one, obviously. But this series has a pretty good take on it as well. It's very natural the way it progresses. It doesn't really feel like stuff is forced. So you see Batman from his early days and like Season 1, the cops hunt him just as much as they hunt the villains. Like, nobody wants a vigilante protecting, or at least the cops don't want a vigilante protecting Gotham. There's no Gordon at first. And so again, you see all these elements play out over the course of the series. And another thing that makes this one pretty distinct is it's the normal Batman villains that I feel like people are used to seeing, with some other, kind of C-listers thrown in there, kind of putting the spotlight a little bit. But when it comes to the main ones people are used to seeing, they're certainly not used to seeing them in this way. These interpretations of the villains, especially Riddler, are very different, very unique, and I don't think any other Batman series, and certainly not movie, have made interpretations similar to the ones that these villains got in this cartoon. And they certainly have more of an edge to them. What's funny about this show is that it starts out pretty edgy, but then over time, kind of once you get into season 3, 4, and 5, I would say, it gets a lot more lighthearted as Batman gets some more sidekicks, it has some more team-ups, and then by the end of it, it's kind of a normal Batman cartoon and stuff. But at first, it kind of has more of a distinct vibe, distinct edge to it, where even Batman and his Bruce Wayne persona is not as dark and not as grim. He's a little bit more like the playboy side of things. For Bruce Wayne, I would say he's a little bit more cheerful, I guess, and not as seemingly gloomy. Alfred also is great in this series as well. He's not like Secret Agent James Bond Alfred that you get in Beware the Batman, but I think this series does a great job of emphasizing how Alfred truly is a father to Bruce Wayne, and he's the father that unfortunately Bruce lost when he was a child. But Alfred raised Bruce as a kid and has a special connection with him because of that, and he truly is his dad in the modern day. And this series does a phenomenal job at portraying that. Again, the villains are really nice with their edge. There's definitely some creepier vibes in this show. You see certain origins of villains that are really well done. And even if they are different interpretations, I still think they keep the core of what each villain should be, and there's always that tragic element to them that makes them more interesting characters, just like in all the other Batman interpretations, or at least most of them. There's been a few in there that's like, oh, you really messed that one up. Like the Joel Schumacher Batman films.
7 million. Never leave the cave without it.
You are so disappointing on so many levels.
But as far as this cartoon goes, very interesting art style. Batman kind of has like claws. And again, just the look for each villain. Episodic, it's not really an overarching story like most of the other Batman cartoons, except for Beware the Batman. But again, they stay true to the core character of Batman in this one, as all these series do. I think that's something that is a really big compliment, you could say, about all of the Batman cartoons, is they usually stay true to Batman as a character across all the mediums. Even if it's a lighter interpretation like Batman Brave and the Bold, or a darker interpretation like Beware the Batman, and even this cartoon, The Batman, I think that they all still stay very true to the character, true to his motives, true to how he would respond to certain things, and also true to the fact that he does not kill. Across all of these Batman series, that is a rule. He does not kill anyone, and I thoroughly appreciate that, because for me, that is really what makes Batman such a phenomenal character in fiction, is that conviction that he won't kill. But those are the 3 Batman cartoons that I am recommending for you guys. I think all of these are great in their own right. I think they each have different elements that about the Batman mythos that really make them work in their own ways. And it's really nice to have this roster of Batman series that are each unique and each have their own elements to offer that might attract different people, but they all still stay true to the Batman character. So really glad to have all these series and all these cartoons, and I highly recommend you check them out. But of course, we all know Batman the Animated Series is top tier, king.
The best. Love it.
Greatest of all time, best one of them all, will never be topped.
It's fantastic.
But thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap. Ouch, my ears. That hurt.